And welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the Top Talk podcast. I'm your host, Harrison Reno. Alongside me, co-host Dan Kiley. He's back, folks. He's back from Dallas, Texas. Had a little work trip. Dan, glad
Yep.
to see you back, my friend. Glad to see you back. And how did Dallas go? How'd you like Dallas, Texas?
Dallas was fine. Actually, we didn't get to really get out and do much. I've been to Dallas a couple times before, so it wasn't like the first time I've ever been. But let me tell you something. Listen, for the longest time, I've walked around this world and said, you don't know what hot is because Georgia's hot. I don't care how hot you think it is. Georgia's hot. We are hot, blah, blah, blah. Bro, it was 115 every single day in Dallas with a heat index of over 122. We went to Top Golf. I hit like 100 golf balls and went into a full body cramp. And I looked at the lady at Top Golf and I was like, this is wild. And she's like, listen, I'm from Texas and this is wild. So it was so freaking hot. But, we're inside for most part. It was but very pretty. Got to see some cool stuff, and it's Dallas.
Hey, I mean, you know what cool thing you didn't get to see that Zach is hating on right now? Dallas Cowboys. I'm sorry about that, Dan. Maybe we'll see him catching up the time. But anyways,
dude, I saw enough Cowboys stuff to last me a lifetime. We landed and it looked like the Cowboys threw up over the airport.
good Lord. Yeah, I can only imagine. They need to make a Jerry World airport. I mean, basically that stadium is an airport. But anyways, we're not going to talk NFL today. We're not going to talk Dallas today. We're going to talk college football because Dan's back. I do want to give a quick shout out. If you didn't see our episode last week, we had a sit-in co-host, Andrew Leon of Gamecock Digest over there on Sports Illustrated's Fan Nation. Did a great job filling in for Dan last week. Gave us a really extensive look into that program over there in South Carolina, kicking off our SEC opponent previews, which hopefully – for the next one, we're going to do it in a few weeks' time. We will have Dan back for this one because, Dan, I don't know if you've seen it yet because I know you were traveling, but he did answer. He gave us a very extensive look into that quarterback situation that you suggested to be asked about. So I'm kind of excited to see how we do it. The last interview Dan and I did together was terrific. The Aaron Murray interview, holy crap, that was a great show. Probably the best interview we've done on this program in a very long time out of all the guests we've had. Really love that interview. Dan got really insightful answers out of that some journalists can't even get out of people these days. So kudos to Dan. Excited to have him back. Dan, let's get into hot topics because we have a hell of a show to get into. Dan, hot topic number one. This is news that kind of broke this morning. Michigan's Jim Harbaugh is suspended or negotiating for 4 games. Technically, he's like sitting out voluntarily, it seems like, for 4 games due to recruiting violations, and not really recruiting violations. I sensationalized there. It is more of he gave some misleading statements when investigated by the NCAA into some alleged violations that Michigan had back in, I believe it was 2020. Dan, what is your take on this? As we talked about pre-show, I kind of think I know where this question's going to go because we hit on it pretty much every time we talk about the NCAA. But Dan, I want your take on this.
Well, initially the maximum, I believe the maximum penalty for what he did was 6 games, but this has been going on forever. When I saw this pop up today, you have to understand information. There's so much information out there that when things gets told to you and then they go away for a while and they don't get brought up again, then something else, like this pops up. I believe this whole incident was from 2016, if I'm not mistaken. So it's taken this long. You're talking about, what is that, 7 years before the penalty comes down? I mean, that's absolutely insane and ridiculous. I mean, I know, Harrison, we've said over and over again, and we've beat it into the ground that the NCAA has no backbone, but it's supposed to be a 6-game suspension. I don't know what's taking them so long. And I guess they're going to negotiate it down to a 4-game suspension. But, I talked to my stepdad today, who is a massive Michigan fan. And, he's like, we all know this is coming. We're not surprised. We don't care. And I was like, well, you have a 1-game schedule anyway, so it doesn't even freaking matter. And he laughed and he said, yeah, you're probably right. So, I mean, it is what it is. I did see an interesting tweet from Jim Harbaugh that was dated 2016, where he said, if the Georgia coach is trying to say or trying to indicate that this was on purpose, he's barking up the wrong tree. And he was basically saying, watch out for Michigan. Well, come full circle, you did get to play that Georgia coach, and Georgia coach whooped your ass. So
He wasn't barking up the tree. He chased him up the tree.
Yeah,
Last year. Dan, I honestly haven't read in much into this Michigan, investigation stuff. Actually, you sending it to me today was the first time I saw it. Shout out to Ross Dellinger, did a great job on that reporting piece. Ross Dellinger is a heck of a reporter. Breaks a lot of stories in regards to NIL and the NCAA these days. But Dan, here's my takeaway. He negotiates it down to a 4-game from a 6-game because when you look at their schedule, I want to do this last week, and if Dan was on the show last week, I know what his rant was going to be because I was going to request one. Dan, Michigan's schedule is atrocious.
Yes.
Atrocious.
Yes.
They play East Carolina at home, UNLV at home, Bowling Green at home, and Rutgers at home. Now, look, their out-of-conference schedule is just as bad as Georgia's, and I will admit that. But Georgia's out-of-conference schedule is kind of out of their control. They wanted to play OU, but they couldn't play OU. Michigan has made no attempt to make a marquee matchup. They're selling this East Carolina game as their marquee out-of-conference matchup, where they're going to be, instead of a 48-point favorite with Jim Harbaugh there, probably just going to be a 40-point favorite now. No big deal in that place. But how is this not getting talked about? And go look at Clemson's schedule, another team. Their only marquee matchup is Notre Dame. Well, I'm going to come back to you and say, hey, I know Georgia doesn't have OU on the schedule, but they at least tried to get that marquee game on the schedule. Got it taken away from them. So I don't know where this hate is. I saw the tweet, the statement that, dozens of teams can go in undefeated against Georgia's schedule. Dan, I want to get into this, so I'm going to save that for later, probably a later show at a later date. I don't think there's dozens of teams that can go undefeated on Georgia's schedule. I really don't. Out of conference schedule, yes. But when you combine all 12 games, there is not a dozen teams in college football that can do that.
No, there's not. You're absolutely right. And, one of the things I took out of media day, going back to the soft schedule, is if Kirby says, if you think it's soft, come play it, right? And listen, I know it's a little tongue in cheek in there, and because he knows you can't come play it, whatever. But the SEC is not as strong 1 through 14 as it has ever been. Okay. I mean, if you're being realistic, you'll say that. Okay.
Agreed.
But teams 12, 13, and 14 can have a day where they up and beat somebody they're not supposed to, right? If you look at the bottom of these other conferences, those teams at the very bottom of those conferences, I mean, would you say that they have it in them just to beat somebody they're not supposed to? I'm just not really sure. I'm not really sure. But, when we talked about this before the show, we knew we didn't really want to talk about Jim Harbaugh all that much. I mean, end of the story. He's going to get 4 games. They have a cupcake schedule. Does it really matter? No. It's taken 7 years to suspend the damn guy, or 6 years, whatever the case may be. And NCAA soft, it has no backbone, and nothing holds up in court. So Harrison and I have covered that to the nth degree. But listen, we have a new segment that we debuted 2 weeks ago, and it's the blind draft. Harrison was all about it. I was like, whatever, we'll do it. I'll give it a shot. I had a lot of fun doing it, and he asked me to prepare a blind draft for him. And let me tell you how much fun I had doing this draft for him. So, great segment idea, Harrison. I enjoyed the hell out of it. This is the blind draft. So if you're unfamiliar, go ahead, Harrison.
Hold up. Not my idea. We borrowing it from Real Talk UGA, Rylan Godey and Tate Ratledge. And I was like, hey, this is something me and Dan can do every once in a while, to spice some things up. So shout out to those guys for the idea. Dan, continue.
All right. So he said it doesn't have to be football related, which was like for me, because I get bored and I'm like a squirrel. I'm like, woo, all over the place. So I wanted to do cartoons. So when I started to put this list together, I realized that the cartoons that I watched, Harrison would have no idea. So I enlisted some help. He's not in here tonight, and I don't know why. They're haters. They don't watch our show. But Jonathan helped me come up with this. So I thought that he would be here to see it, because we're always watching his show. That's a shot, Jonathan. But anyway, I have a list. So what we're going to do is I'm going to give Harrison 8 cartoons that were on air in his peak childhood years. Okay.
Oh, Lord.
And so I've gotten help from Jonathan, and I went on some lists what were the best cartoons of the generation. So we have 8 spaces. I'm going to give him one at a time, and he gets to put them wherever he wants to put them. and we'll see how this plays out. We had a lot of fun with it last time. We hope you guys like it. If you could make that bigger, that would be fantastic, Harrison. You can make it a little bit
Let's
bigger.
see. Might have to move the mic.
There we go. Perfect. Here we go. All right. Are you ready, sir?
I'm ready. Hit me.
The very first one, Fairly Odd Parents.
I texted you earlier today, and I'm just going to go ahead and reveal it. If Looney Tunes isn't on this list, I may not have a number one. So I'm going to hold out and hope that Looney Tunes is number one. Fairly Odd Parents, I'm going to put at 5. I have, fond memories of watching the show. Wasn't the most committed viewer to this show, and I know I'm going to get roasted in the chat, Dan, because shoot, this is maybe a decade ago, and most of everybody in this chat is older than me, so may not even know this. And I mean, maybe they do. I don't know if anybody in the chat other than Robert has a kid right now, is a dad right now, so they might not even know what this is. But Fairly Odd Parents, I'm gonna go at 5. I said moments, my bad.
All right, so let me just tell you, my son absolutely loved that show, and I would have to watch the things with him. And dude, Fairly Odd Parents was a banger. I liked it a lot. All right, number 2. This was my son's favorite cartoon growing up. Adventure Time.
All right, Dan. I know you're gonna hit me with a curveball, but I hated Adventure Time, man. It's going in the 8 spot. I never got into it for some reason. I don't know why. Just wasn't my deal. I'm putting it in 8.
All right. Now listen, if you're watching this show, guys, I'm telling you, you can boo him or cheer him on his selections. I encourage it. All right. Number 3, Scooby-Doo. Scooby-Dooby-Doo, where are you?
This is gonna test it. Scooby-Doo, it's a classic. I'm going in the 2 spot. Like I said, I'm holding out for Looney Tunes. I don't know what's coming next, but Scooby-Doo, yeah, that's gonna make it tough. I might be regretting this one if I don't get the number 1 I want.
Next up, we have DuckTales. Woo!
Big Donald Duck fan. Growing up, I like Donald Duck. And for that, I'll give him 4.
DuckTales. Got it. All right, now this one. So there were some cartoons that they listed that I didn't think I really didn't think that you would watch some of them. So anyway, the next one, Avatar: The Last Airbender.
I'm pissed. I put something in 8. Going in 7. I have no words. I'm not a big. Dang it! I wish I saved that 8 spot.
All right, so Avatar Airbender was voted the number 1 cartoon from 2000 to 2018.
Oh, I just never got into it, man. Never got into it.
A Jonathan submission, SpongeBob.
3. No doubt, that was my childhood growing up, and I know y'all are gonna make some comments about me still being my childhood. I may well be, but SpongeBob's number 3. Honestly, I don't know. Is that one of the longest running cartoons on TV still?
Simpsons.
Like The Simpsons. That's it. Ooh, damn it! Did I just screw myself? Damn. Yeah, this isn't looking hot.
Right. Here we go. All right. Number 7, Looney Tunes.
Number 1. I saved up for this, Dan. I saved up for this. I did. I'm really upset about these 2 right now. I would save these 2. I would switch these 2 if I had the chance. But I don't know where you're going at number 6, and I assume it's going to be an absolute dud.
Teen Titans Go.
Ooh, I actually liked it better than Fairly Odd Parents. That is the one cartoon that I can turn on right now and kind of be entertained by.
Teen Titans 2 is rated the number 2 cartoon from 2000 to 2018.
Hey, I'm actually not. I'm not mad about this one. I'm not bad. I'm not mad at all. I would switch if I had the opportunity. I'd switch these 2, and I switch these 2, and I think that's a pretty damn good list. I really do.
So Adventure Time was originally Smurfs, but I was told to swap it out because you probably never watched Smurfs.
I don't think I did. I've seen like the movie and wasn't impressed, but wasn't there because I wanted to see
All right.
it.
So boys, chat, group, what do you think? Looney Tunes, Scooby-Doo, SpongeBob, DuckTales, Fairly Odd Parents, Teen Titans Go, Avatar Airbender, and Adventure Time. I'm just telling you, I thought Fairly Odd Parents is pretty good. I enjoyed actually most of these. I did not enjoy Adventure Time, but my son did. So I don't know.
One thing. The original Looney Tunes was my thing. My grandfather used to put it on all the time in my childhood. Whatever Cartoon Network stuff that they had on years ago, 10 years ago, not it. That would be at the bottom of my list. But the OG Looney Tunes, number one all time in my opinion. Dan, I was waiting. I thought Airbender was going to sink my ship, and I did not think that Teen Titans was going to be on here. I'm not mad about this one. I thought Dan was going to throw me some dirt balls after I gave him Mike Bobo third choice.
I was going to give you Futurama because it was the number 3 cartoon of all time, but I've never actually seen an episode of Futurama. I don't even know what that is.
To be honest with you, I've not watched it either. And honestly, it may shock people, but Rick and Morty is very popular among college students.
Oh, yeah, that was the other one.
Never watched it.
I was going to put Tom and Jerry. Did you ever watch Tom and Jerry?
I did. That would be top 5.
All right.
Definitely top 5.
Did you have fun? Because I had so much fun putting that together.
I like it. I'm honestly starting to think about what I want to do for you next week. I know we talked about dipping sauces, but
my wife gave me a good one. I already have your next one ready to go.
Oh God.
No, it's fun. It's fun.
Yeah. So I like it. I said it in chat in the text. It was gonna be hard for me to beat Dan's reaction to me giving him Mike Bobo, because Dan, right when he heard it, he was like, "Man, you already screwed me over," and then he ends up with Fat in the last spot, saves himself from the bell. If y'all want to go watch a fun one, go watch that one. If you really thought you liked this one, go watch Dan's reaction to the QBs, the UGA QBs. That was fun. I've watched it maybe 3 or 4 times, Dan, and it gets better almost every time.
Well, I hope I performed. There we go.
Hey, I'll take it. We'll take it. Guys, let's get into Dan's rant of the week. It's been 2 weeks since Dan. Yeah, because Dan was gone last week. 2 weeks. Dan, what do we have on tap? I know the preview of I know the headline of this, but I don't know where you're going with it.
All right. So, as always, I dedicate my rants to Rudes. This is his favorite segment. It's the only thing he tunes in for. So, all right. What got me thinking about this is it's game day etiquette, right? It's etiquette when you're in crowds. It's etiquette when you're around people. I understand being a fan and all that stuff, but what got me thinking about this is I have a friend named Josh Outlaw. He does a podcast. It's called the Chocolate Milk Podcast. It's a murder podcast. If you ever want to listen, he's an Auburn fan, so he doesn't listen to our show at all. And he's not really a huge football fan. But he said his biggest pet peeve in the world is when you land on an airplane and immediately everybody stands up. Like, where the hell are you going? Where in the hell are you going? Dude, like, we're not even at the gate yet. Like, let the people in front of you off. Like, people from the back trying to rush up to the front to get off the damn plane. I'm like, oh my, that is a huge pet peeve. So with that whole thing happened multiple times this past week for me, because every single damn plane that lands, it happens. So it got me thinking about game day etiquette. And I know I am on record. Harrison's heard me say it. I do not enjoy going to games anymore. I don't. It doesn't matter. Like, I actually really enjoy going to hockey games more than any other game, but I don't enjoy going to games anymore. And part of the reason, actually a large part of the reason I don't enjoy going to games anymore is because of the people around, because they're so rude and they have no etiquette, right? Like, first of all, you go to a game, and I do go to a lot of Hawks games. And excuse my language, Harrison. I know you don't like it, but sit the fuck down. Like, you don't have to get up and go to the like back and forth. And you know how they pack these stadiums in so tight now to where there's no room between the seats. So you're like, give me in, okay. And you miss half the damn game because there's people going back and forth. And it's always the same thing. It's these girls that dress up like crazy, like they're all like fancy dressed up, and they think it's like some like fashion show, and they're more worried about getting up, going to talk, going to the bathroom, doing this, doing that. It's like, dude, I'm there to watch the game. And that's why I sit at home, is I want to watch the game. And when you go to a game now, you can't watch it. People are rude as hell. They, another thing on the airplane, you don't get both armrests. You get one, right? So pick one. And then the other person has the other one. But when you go to a game, you got these people who just sloppy people, just sit all over the seats, and they're hanging all over, their legs spread apart. And, you're just uncomfortable and miserable the entire game. And then, you've got the dumbasses who stand up at the wrong times. Like, listen, you get up, you cheer your ass off, you clap your hands, high five everybody, woo-hoo, yeah, everything, right? Have a great time. But, like, have some damn common decency, with the people around you and stuff like that. And then, slinging food and drinks everywhere. I mean, having people knock shit out of your hands. People are just so rude. And then just the way that people talk, especially like if you have kids, which I do, and I know Robert does, and I guess nobody else does, trying to bring us, bring your kids to the game, and you got people talking about all sorts of bullshit, and like you ain't got time for that. And game day etiquette is just so out of control these days, and what people think they can say, what people think they can do, it's almost impossible to watch the game. And part of it is TV has made it such a better product now. And then Harrison wanted me to say that he hates when people bark at everybody because he thinks it's so rude and so ignorant or whatever.
Whoa. Whoa.
Harrison is a non-barker.
I'm not a barker. That's just not me. But I mean, there's definitely like an audience, like to me, like the taller audience. Don't be doing it to kids. If you're doing it to kids, see ya.
You know what though? You say that, but actually, like outside of the stadium, typically Georgia fans are some of the best around. I've watched Georgia fans invite fans from other groups over to get something to drink, get something to eat. They're like, "Hey, come over here, get you a sandwich or something." And that's not like that everywhere. I can promise you, it's not like that everywhere. I know that I've gone down to the game early and didn't have a planned tailgate, and there have been plenty of Georgia fans who they'll see you walking around and offer you something to drink or something to eat. So Georgia fans, there are a lot of them that are very good Georgia fans. Why are we clapping?
Hey, just nice people, man. Good dogs. Yeah, damn good dogs.
There are a lot of really good ones, but it's always the minority that ruins it for everybody. Like when you're on an airplane, it ain't every last person standing up. It's always the same ass clowns. And you know what? When you're getting on the plane, you can point them out. As soon as you get there, you'll be like, "Oh, you're going to be one. You will definitely be one." It's always the same people. And for me, it's just the getting up and getting down. Like just like get your food. Like when my son knows the routine now. We've got it down pat. When he was a little kid, a little bit different. But now we get to the game early. We get our food. We get in our seats. We eat our food. We get our drinks. We go refill them before the game starts. And our ass don't get up until it's a break. Right? That's just how it is. But Dan, I hope I delivered on the rant.
Dan, my one game day etiquette, broken law that I've experienced was at a Braves game maybe last summer. Braves hit a home run. It was the Dodgers game. It was Freeman's second game back in Atlanta. And Dan, Braves hit a home run. They're up maybe 2 or 3 runs. It's like the 6th, 7th inning. These people, a couple rows down, get up right after the home run in the middle of the chop to go refill their beers. As I'm videoing the light show that is the chop. Like, you don't do that. You don't interrupt the chop after a home run in a close game. You just don't do it. That's like getting up in the middle of fanfare or dang it. I'm blanking on the name. The fourth quarter, like, you don't get up then. You just don't do it.
Well, it's because they're not fans. I mean, they're pricing out the real fans to the games, and it's real corporate, and the people who are there just to get drunk, and they don't care about the product. So,
hey, but the chop is better, Zach. The chop is better than the beer. Now I can't speak to that. Maybe Dan can attest to that one, but I can't. Dan, let's get into SC Media Day, and actually, not really SC Media Day. We're gonna talk about our SC Media Day topics because this is based off SC Media Day. SC season predictions. Now, Dan has said he would only do this if he can at least revise come week 1 or before week 1. Which I think that's fair because fall camp hasn't happened, and hey, who knows? Some really good player can go down with an injury, and hey, that changes our predictions. It can happen, and it has happened in the past. So, Dan, let's get into some SC Media Day discussion. Obviously, at SC Media Day is the polling right after. Everybody polls. Everybody who's there in attendance gets a vote onto who they think wins each division and goes on to win the conference. Tell me if you're surprised, but Georgia and Alabama are the 2 teams in the SEC championship game. That was the prediction from both sides. Vanderbilt did get a vote. That was the biggest surprise out of all of Media Day. But Dan, I'm actually surprised that LSU wasn't the one winning the West, just with all the talk and conversation, all the hype heading into SEC Media Day was LSU's gonna have a damn good football team, and I agree. LSU will have a damn good football team. Brian Kelly's opened up eyes across the country after year one, but I mean, no, in long term, it's not shocking that Alabama was picked to win the West, especially after not winning it last year. But I mean, shoot, we just blew up to smithereens the LSU to win the SEC West conversation.
With the the LSU
to win the SEC West.
Oh,
or just blew it up. Just go on.
Well, I mean, it's talk, right? It doesn't. I mean, I didn't say it. I mean, I don't. So if I say Alabama's going to win the West, am I blowing it up? Because I never said that LSU was ever going to win the West. Like I think LSU did a good job last year. I think Brian Kelly's going to do a good job. I told you, I was on record. I was shouting from tabletops last year that Brian Kelly going to LSU was dangerous because he was winning at Notre Dame and he didn't get enough credit for the work that he did do at Notre Dame. Everybody wanted to make fun of him for not being able to win the title. But the fact that he was winning at Notre Dame, period, says a lot. And I thought he did a great job, even though he's not really family with those people. That was a really bad time. And he's corny. He's a corny guy. He just is, but he's a good football coach. But listen, I have Alabama winning the West. And the class that they just put together is absolutely ridiculous. Anybody that says Nick Saban's out the pasture is smoking crack. Now, listen, have they been good as they've been in the past here recently? No, they haven't. But Alabama's Alabama, and Alabama's going to win. That's just how that goes. And Phyllis will agree with me, okay? So, Alabama, I got them winning the West, but I think LSU's going to be a really, really good team. And then just a Hail Mary type of team right there. I think Ole Miss, if things go right, I think they could be a thorn in some people's side. I'm not going to say they could win the West. I don't think that's possible, but I really do think it's going to be between Alabama and LSU, and I think Alabama is going to come out of the West. That's just me.
It's an interesting conversation because when you think about LSU, they have the talent on that roster. They've recruited at a top 5 level in the maybe 4 to 5 years predating Brian Kelly. Obviously, they had some struggles under Ed Orgeron in the end of that reign, but they have the athletes, Dan. They absolutely have the athletes, but the biggest difference between what LSU has right now, obviously, they have a really good quarterback returning in Jaden Daniels. They have probably one of the top returning receivers out wide this year, and I'm blanking on his name right now. They got the talent, but it's the depth. Alabama still has the depth that they've always had because they've been consistent in their recruiting, and it's something even Brian Kelly has admitted what he has to improve from a roster perspective to catch up to Georgia as they talk. And I don't know why I guess it was the camera. Is they have to recruit at an elite level for a little bit longer. They have to build that roster, build out that depth because right now Georgia's the deepest roster in the SEC, and I know. When you go pound for pound, player by player, position by position, Georgia may get beaten out by some teams. Alabama may have a better, I don't know. What is Alabama better at than Georgia on a roster? I haven't dove into Alabama's roster. Maybe defensive line. Maybe that this year you can say Alabama has a better defensive line. I don't know, talent wise, but Alabama has depth. Georgia probably has the deepest roster in the SEC. Probably put LSU third, but they still have to make that next step in depth. I'm actually going to agree with you, Dan, on this one. I think Alabama wins it. The reason this LSU conversation has come up recently is obviously they had a great year one under Brian Kelly, but I think at the end of the day, it's going to come down to depth, and I don't think they have it just yet. I think they have the top-end talent, but you got to have more than just one really good receiver. You got to have multiple world beaters on the outside to beat a Georgia team, to beat a Georgia defense that, by all means has been elite. For the last few years. I don't see LSU winning it that way, which means I'm picking Alabama despite the issues at quarterback right now. Nobody knows who their quarterback's going to be. I think they're going to figure it out.
And in a future episode, we'll give you how we think everybody's going to finish, right, Harrison, in the order that they finish. But so speaking of the West, I really think, like we said, it's a 2-team horse. But then if you're going to transition to the East, Harrison, I mean, I know it sounds like homerism, right? But it's Georgia. I mean, it's Georgia, and I don't think it's anybody else. And you could say there's an argument for Tennessee, and I could tell you no. And you could say there's an argument for South Carolina, I'll tell you no. And you could say that maybe there's a case for Florida, I could tell you there's no way in hell that's happening. it's Georgia in the East. And I mean, the only team that could beat Georgia is Georgia. It's like injuries or just something we haven't seen in quite some time in University of Georgia is just arrogance and just, the peacocking and thinking that they're so much better than everybody else and not taking the game seriously. But Kirby has done such a great job these last couple of years of making sure that his guys are ready to play. And outside of injuries, I don't see a way, that they don't win the East. I just don't see it. I mean, because let's just say that there's a chance that Tennessee could beat Georgia. Okay, listen, we've watched games at Neyland Stadium before where the turf monster has shredded like 5 of our players' knees in a period of like 3 years. Could that happen? Knock on wood, pray to God that it doesn't happen, because I'd hate to see a kid get hurt. But I mean, this place has been a house of horrors. Is there a chance Tennessee could win that football game? Sure. Tennessee's going to have 3 losses. You see Georgia having 3 losses? Come on. It's not going to happen. So I've got Georgia winning the East. I think the only legitimate team that could put up a fight would be Tennessee. I don't see a situation where South Carolina can put together a season to do that. I don't. And then I think Florida, I don't even think a true Florida fan would make an argument that they could win the East. I mean, like a sane one. I'm not talking about one that eats paint chips.
They don't have the talent over there in Florida just yet, and that may change soon. But I mean, it's been talked about at length. We talked about it here. Dan Mullen ran that program into the ground, capitalized off of the top 10-esque recruiting of of his 2 predecessors. Will Muschamp knows how to recruit, knows talent, had a at the time, really big, brand that is Florida football. Not long after the Urban Meyer days, still believed in that program. And then Jim McElwain kind of got that, ship sailing a little bit. Had its holes in the bottom of the boat, but kept it afloat for the most part, and was still able to recruit at a decent level. And then Dan Mullen Rhodes, comes in on their coattails and wins 10 games a couple times, and then beats Georgia once, and then see ya. Didn't stack that roster. So no, I don't think Florida can do it. I'm not sold on Tennessee this year, Dan. Lose a lot of talent. Yeah, the whole talent loss is brought up year after year after year with Georgia, but we don't talk about it when we talk about a team like Tennessee, who had an all-time all-time year in the 2000s. That was probably their best season they've had since the late 90s. Best season they've had in a long time. Maybe 2000s is a stretch, but best season they've had in a while. And they lose almost everybody. Almost everybody. You lose Hendon Hooker. You lose Jalen Hyatt. You lose Cedric Tillman. Your top 2 playmakers out wide, gone. Best quarterback, gone. And you don't have much proven production outside of that. Your offensive line hasn't been good. Your offensive line has probably been the reason you lost the game to Georgia, because they can sack you 7 times and really don't give you much time to hit your deep balls out wide. So, yeah, to me, it's Georgia in the East, and it ain't even close. But we'll see. That game in Neyland Stadium going to be a good one. Really looking forward to that. That atmosphere is going to be electric. It's going to be loud, probably as loud as it was in Sanford this year, if not a little bit louder. It's going to be a packed stadium, packed house. We're looking forward to that one. Dan, let's talk about some trip ups here, because that is the conversation. Is better never rest. That was the motto for Georgia and Kirby Smart here at Media Day. Better never rest. And to me, if this team embraces that, you won't see another Missouri game. You won't see Georgia go on the road to Missouri and basically be out of the game for 3 quarters. I don't think you see that. If they live up to this motto like they did chopping wood and what was their motto last year? Be the or we will not be hunted. I don't see them.
Oh wait, last year it was win.
Or no. Yeah, what's important now? And then they also had the Hunters thing. Yeah,
well, that was just something Kirby said.
Yeah. Just to me, that's the big, like you said, arrogance is the concern. It's been something they talk about all the time, is complacency. And that's really going to be a reflection of the leaders. If the leaders on the team are good at what they do, are good leaders, then Georgia's going to be fine. They won't have complacency. And won't have those bad games. Because Dan, last year, we talked about on here, you came away feeling with some of those early games that Georgia didn't play as good as they should have. And, they definitely didn't. That Kent State game was a lot closer than it should have been. obviously due to a couple, I believe it was turnovers at the time. And now Georgia opens up the season with basically 5 games that they should win handily. UT Martin, Ball State, we'll skip over South Carolina, and then UAB. You should win those 3 out of conference games decisively. Are they going to suffer kind of the same thing they did against Kent State, where they kind of get sloppy there at the end of the game? I don't know. That's yet to be determined. But I do know this, Dan. I'll go on record for this. Whatever that spread is for that UT Martin game, I'm touching it. I am touching it. And I know that's probably a hot take, or maybe it isn't a hot take. But because, with this, it's going to be a massive spread. Ball State's going to be a massive threat. UAB is going to be a massive threat, or massive spread, excuse me. I'm touching that spread with UT Martin, because when's the last time we saw a Georgia team walk into a season opener not excited, not ready to play?
Yeah, when's the last time you saw Kirby try to really put it on a team that had no business? Like, he just doesn't do that. I don't bet those games. I stay away from them. Like, does Georgia have the ability to put a number on those teams? Absolutely. Will he? I don't know, man. It's just with Kirby, you never know. He could get a 35-point lead like Saban and shut it down, and just not. Saban here recently he'll go for the 75-0 win, but Kirby, that's not really in his DNA unless he has an axe to grind. Like we saw, he did it with Vanderbilt, right? They had an axe to grind, and because of what they did to him the COVID year, we saw him. He doesn't like Shane Beamer. I think that's been made fairly clear and obvious, because he put it on South Carolina, and then he, to my surprise, and I remember in the group chat during the national championship game, I thought Kirby would call up the dogs, and he didn't. He never did. He let them boys off the leash and let them go. But
he let those boys eat.
Yeah, and then LSU he did too. He let them boys eat against them Tigers, them Bayou Tigers.
I don't know. It's that the dynamic there with him and Shane Beamer. Obviously, they worked together for a few years, and then he goes to OU. I don't know if there's any bad blood between those two, if there's hurt feelings on some side there. Obviously, Kirby can't be hurt too bad because he's gone on and kept winning, even with Shane Beamer gone for the program. I like Shane Beamer. I think he's a good coach. Has done a good job at South Carolina, got them back to playing to that, in my mind, Dan, we said last week, when I think of South Carolina football, that's a 7-8 win football team. Like that's what their baseline should be, 7 to 8 wins a year. And he's gotten them to that. But yeah, it's all about playing to the standard at Georgia. A lot of coach speak tonight. All these different mottos. Dan, I know we'll get into the SEC predictions full-heartedly later. We both have Alabama winning the West. I think we probably both have LSU coming in second. I would be remiss if we're talking SEC ball and I didn't ask you about this program. It's a program that is a hot topic around college football the last 2 years, Texas A&M. I don't know where this team's going. I don't know what their outlook looks like. Obviously, they have talent at a number 1 recruiting class just a year ago. What's your take?
Jimbo Fisher's still the head coach?
He's still the head coach.
And then hell with him. There you go. There's my take.
There we go. I don't know if they have talent on the team. They can win with the talent they have, but they have the coaching. Going to be interesting to watch. That is probably a dumpster fire pick that if I had to choose one right now, I know Florida's the popular pick. Florida's the dumpster fire, but Texas A&M may be the dumpster fire, and there may be a lot of cash in that dumpster fire over there. Gonna be a good football season. I'm excited for it. This year seems, a little bit wide open as it pertains to, everywhere else. I know Georgia is, getting talked about as can they win the three-peat? Hasn't been done before in a very long time. Hasn't been done in the modern era of college football. I believe the last time it happened was Minnesota back in the 1930s. Can Georgia do it? I think a lot of people are counting Georgia out a little bit to do it because it hasn't been done in a while. But hey, nothing like a little rat poison gets the Georgia team going heading into this season. Dan, A&M is going to be a beautiful inferno. Yeah, I agree. I agree. It's going to be fun to watch. I wasn't impressed with their hire. Don't think Bobby Petrino was the one they should have gotten. Thought they should have went for a younger, the younger Riley brother.
I think it's awesome. I think it's awesome they hired Bobby Petrino. Like, there is a slim chance that it actually works and they're like really good, but there is a great chance that this is like one of the most beautiful disasters ever. This is like a 47 car pileup on the side of the highway where everybody gets out and just watches. This is gonna
Good
be
Lord.
great. It's the big one in Talladega.
Dan's having fun with it. I'm lost for words with that one. I don't know where they went wrong there. Maybe it was with Jimbo's 10-year contract or whatever they gave him. Ridiculous amount of money. That shows you where that oil money is and what it can do for you. Guys, that's gonna
not to
go
mention he ran Florida State into the ground before he left. Like if you did not read the leaves on that tree, like he wins because he's got King Crab playing quarterback, and then as soon as he's gone, it's just like I don't like that's anyway. As
John
Harrison said,
Calipari of football.
No, John Calipari can win. Anyway, that's going to wrap it up for our show, boys. Make sure you hit that like, hit that subscribe, follow us on our socials. Harrison's doing a bad job. He hasn't put it up yet, so I'll do it right now. Boom. There it is. Make sure you follow us, Harrison at Harrison Reno and Dan at Dan Kiley 3. Hit like, hit subscribe, share with your friends. For God's sakes, follow us on Twitter. I have like 300 followers. So, like, I get called out. If I'm like, hey, that's a dumb take, they're like, shut your mouth. You have 300 followers. So, I need followers.